Good morning, class. So we finished memory management, and now we move on next to mass storage systems, commonly known as secondary storage. So here are today's topics: overview, structure of mechanical disks, and how disks are, how they interface to the system. We're going to skip disk scheduling. And here are the chapter objectives. So today we're seeing more and more solid state drives, but magnetic disks still dominate for secondary storage. We'll see a figure in the next slide, but magnetic disks are disks, are composed of disks that rotate at some frequency. There's an interface bus between the disk drive and the computer system, and we have a data transfer rate on that bus. There are, as you'll see in the next figure, again, read-write heads that have to be positioned to a particular track in order to satisfy a data request. That's called a seek. Seek takes a certain amount of time to complete. The read-write heads are shaped like airfoils and literally float over the disk surface when the disk is rotating. If the system is subjected to a large enough force, that can cause the heads to crash into the disk, which will cause some of the magnetic, the oxide material to spray up, and will probably result in further disk crashes. The distance between the disk and a flying head is much smaller than the diameter of a human hair. Disks can be removable. You might remember floppy diskettes or zip drives. And in terms of the interconnect to computer systems in consumer grade computers, the SATA bus is most common for permanently attached drives. Removable drives can be attached using USB or eSATA. Servers will typically use fiber channel or SCSI or serial attached SCSI. EIDE is old, as is ATA. Disk drives have control circuitry on the disk drive that communicates with control circuitry on the host computer. So here's a cartoon showing the inside of a disk drive. So there are some number of platters, and the platters are typically coated on both sides with so data is stored on both sides. There's an ARM assembly that holds the read-write heads on arms. You can see that there is a read-write arm for each side of each platter. The data is stored in concentric circles called tracks. A track is broken into a number of sectors, and we've been talking about page sizes of 4K or larger. When we talk about disk management, we'll talk about block sizes of a particular size. A physical sector on a disk drive is 512 bytes. That hasn't changed at all over the years. You'll note that these read-write heads are ganged together, so it's not possible for, say, this set of read-write heads to be on one track, let's say track T, and another set of read-write heads to be on a track S. So only one track number can be accessed at any particular time. As you can see that the tracks are all the tracks of a particular distance from the center of the disk are grouped into what's known as a cylinder. So all the tracks on a particular cylinder can be accessed at the same time. Where the disk rotates at some rotational speed. Server disks can rotate. Phoenix's disks, for instance, rotate at 15,000 RPM. High-grade consumer disk drives rotate at up to 10,000 RPM. Reasonable consumer disk drives rotate at 7,200 RPM, and there are, in order to conserve power, laptop disk drives sometimes rotate more slowly than 7,200 RPM. So then to satisfy an I/O request, a seek has to be performed. So the ARM assembly has to move to the particular cylinder where the data resides at seek time, and then we have to wait for the particular sector or set of sectors to rotate around and come under the read-write head. That's rotational latency, and that's, as you can imagine, directly related to the spindle's RPM. And then we have to actually wait for the data to pass under the read-write head. All right, so now we have a number of hard disk specifications. So for various spindle RPMs, the average latency is defined to be half of rotation time, because on average the sector we need will be 1/2 rotation away from the read-write head. So you can obviously see that as the disk RPM increases, the average latency decreases. Seek times, remember the time for the ARM assembly to be moved to the appropriate cylinder can vary from 3 milliseconds to 12 milliseconds. That is a very, very long time, and why we want page fault rates when we're using virtual memory to be very, very low. All right, so here we see the average I/O time is average access time. As you can see, that's defined as average seek time plus average latency plus the amount of time to transfer the data, the amount to transfer divided by the transfer rate, plus any controller overhead. And here's an example that yields an average I/O time of 9.3 milliseconds, and again 9.3 milliseconds is a very, very, very long time in from the CPU's perspective. So here's a photo of the first commercial disk drive, which you can see held a whopping 5 megabytes, and I'm being generous there, of data, with an access time of under a second. Talk about long. I don't really have anything to add here about solid-state disks. I'm so old school, or maybe just old, that I still back up the department systems ultimately to magnetic tape. Although that's so slow, I perform the actual backups to a spooling disk in order to minimize backup time, and then bring the systems back up, and then I transfer the backup data from the spool disk to the actual magnetic tapes. And I always keep a set of disaster tapes at home here in case a fire broke out in Julia Rogers, for example. So the abstraction supplied by a disk to a computer is, as you can see here, that the sectors or logical blocks are accessed as a one-dimensional array, but in reality, if you think about it for a moment, a disk drive, the data on a disk drive is in 3 dimensions, and once upon a time, this is how disks were addressed. The 3 dimensions are cylinder number, head number, and then a sector number within the track defined by cylinder and head. All right, mentioned in passing previously, there are a number of bus interfaces that are used to attach disks to systems, such as USB for external drives, SATA, SCSI, serial attached SCSI, etc. For big data applications, storage can be pooled, as mentioned here, from a few to thousands of disks. As one example, in a storage area network, there are a number of storage arrays and possibly tape libraries, and then servers connect to the SAN using specialized I/O buses such as fiber channel, for example. I don't have much to add here except to answer this question using specialized buses and specialized communication protocols allow storage area networks to be optimized for data access, as opposed to running these protocols on top of the TCP/IP in a network, which would add overhead. But there are applications that use a TCP/IP network in order to provide remote access of data. So these networks are called network attached storage, and CIFS, for example, is a Microsoft protocol that's used to give you access to your network, your G drive in Windows, and in the Linux Unix world, the corresponding protocol is NFS. So for example, if you ever boot one of the XLab machines into Linux and log in, your home directory is provided to you by Phoenix, actually, via NFS. And that finishes today's material.